The null of the hip-hop genre is back with his 6th EP titled Delirium. Cody Foster, aka Sadistik, has been making headlines and making head turns ever since the early 2000s, affiliating himself with the legendary freestyle rapper but unfortunately deceased Idea, as well as with other acts such as Chesky, Christoph Crane, POS from Doomtree, No from Cunnilinguist, and Vast Air from Cannibal Ox. His genre, his style is nothing short of dark, suffocating, and morose hip-hop that at its core is not afraid to take you down to hell, torture you, and leave you to rot. But he can also show you his scars and mellow down and show you a lot of emotions that comes with it, especially on the album Haunted Gardens that was released last year. Earlier this year, he announced that he is going to work with No of Cunnilinguist, following up their 2015 collaborative project titled Phantom Limbs. But not long after he announced the news, he came out with a single called Pet Cemetery, a song which at its core does not sound like a Sadistik and No collaborative project, at least production-wise. It sounded like a true horrorcore Sadistik, but dark and yet jumpy all together at once. And not long before he released this EP, he released the single Black Plague, in which I understand why people might think it's cruel and distasteful given the current time that we're living in right now, but I do give him a bit of leeway. He is known to show you with brutal darkness, with brutal honesty, with no filter whatsoever. I mean, look at the cover of my favorite Sadistik album, Altars, in which I actually have it right here. It's not all holy water and sunshine here. So given that we have very minimal information about this project and its background, I really didn't know what to expect coming into this project. But I kinda knew what I was getting into a bit. That's sort of counteracting my argument. What I mean is the cover of Delirium seemed very dark and very cacophonous. So I was kind of hoping I would get that in this EP. So after numerous listens and constant analyzing and whatnot, this might be my favorite Sadistik EP. Rethinking and sort of going back to the lyrics and sort of the production and everything, I kind of relate this album to like a Altars extension, like an Altars 1.5 if you will. The production here and Sadistik rapping seemed very layered, very cacophonous, very dark, very visceral. But with that said, with his ferocity, he gives a bit more of a mellower sort of atmosphere delivery later on in the track list, at least 2 of the songs, which we will get into later. For instance, the opening track, Ultra, has this heavy, thick 808 drums pummeling towards you and weird, curdling synths lingering in the background that just ears and scratches your heart out. And what I love about this is that Sadistik also applies this screeching and unsettling ad-libs, scattering all throughout his verses and especially towards the end. And it's sort of highlighting this demented and sort of cacophonous imagery and topic he's portraying to you guys. And Sadistik comes in with what I could only describe as like a machine gun-like flow, shooting you with every themes of darkness, sins, devils, and murder all together straight forward towards you. They'll remember my voice if I soak them in fire. Here's an open reply to all those who defy. Get injected with poison, not innocent, knotted in sins, nocturnal nights nodding to synths. Nas with the pen monster within. And what I also love and I always find interesting about Sadistik, even though I'm not a big fan of this art form, he references a lot of like horror movies. In this track, he references Night of the Living Dead for the intro sample, as well as Enter the Void. But then I want to put this out, not just saying because I kind of want to put this out that I even though I am a fan of Sadistik, I do have some issues with his style. He will now and then have some spotty moments. I think it's because he has delivered you with this multi-layered sort of darkness verse delivery that is very intricate, but then he would always, and I come to know this really early on when I got into him, is that he will put in a couple of lines in which I think sticks out like a sore thumb. And it's to the point that it's not even, tolerable. It's kind of like a bit of wincing moment here and there. Like in this song, he says, "My styles are so Gucci, my lines are like roomies. You sleep with the sushi, my mouth is an Uzi." Nothing to really write home about. I understand it's tying into the themes of Japan with the Enter the Void film. It's just that like it is a wince-worthy moment when I get to these sort of lines in any of Sadistik's project. But in terms of a deranged and turmoil-heavy character and themes he is delivering to the audience, this track and later on in track list with a track called Sad the Impaler, he delivers it very well with great brutality. I got a knife in my pocket, want to meet it. I can paint it with some blood, want to see it. I call it abstract expressionism, looking like The Exorcist. I bet their heads'll spin indefinitely like the devil's in 'em. Get sliced till the gill's in place. Inside, I'm like Gilles de Rais. Gilles de Rais, the notorious serial killer of French history. And the next track we have is The Plague. And based on the title of the track, that's what it's about. The Plague. Both literally, figuratively, metaphorically, altogether that. And it's sort of just delivering this sort of deprecating view, the human pride and human ignorance of it all. And I like the angle that he takes where he says humans are more than often overconfident in that a certain group of people will think that, oh, this sort of disaster won't happen to me, but if you're too cocky or you're too, I guess, up in your pedestal, that'll backfire on you so fast. Your God is indifferent to pain. You all think you're different. You're not all that different. All of us fit in a grave. Watch how I kill what I hate. The audience filled with a plague again. Monuments built in their name again. Toxins instilled in their brains, feeling ashamed, since all you love still burned to ashes. We reassembled and turned to statues. Gargoyles stayed perched on chapels. Search a surface immersed in blackness. There's a nice beat switch up on the latter half of the track, converting from a very abrasive and aggressive tone to a more mellower tone. But in Sadistik's flow delivery, he turns from a more mellower side to a more abrasive and aggressive side, juxtaposing the two. He does it so flawlessly and so effortlessly. And I love towards the end that he says, if you are careless and keep sort of have this overconfidence of being human and whatnot, the next gen of sort of our people will be born in ashes and ashtrays. And Sadistik has been known as this rapper who has harsh criticism of the external environment, but more than that, he has harsh criticism towards himself. And the track Hell is Where the Heart is a prime example of that. He talks about the uneasy and sort of self-deprecating commentary about himself and life in its eternity and entirety altogether, accompanied by haunting keyboards and piercing guitars in the background and very, very quiet, mellow drums that just lingers throughout the track. And I personally think this is where his heart, his scar pours in this sort of scenario of beats, production, and mind state. The track Pet Cemetery is easily the most exciting, jumpy, but still dark hip-hop songs I've heard all year. With a very earworm string plucking and sort of heavy 808 drums pummeling towards you, and Sadistik giving you relentless flow and themes of brutalism and murder and sort of darkness altogether. Put a bullet in your brain that'll open up your third eye. We then end this whole project EP with the track Eileen Veronos, which I hope I'm pronouncing that name correctly, which talks about the serial killer of the same name. He talks about the turmoil and sort of voices just lingering in her head that must have went through her as she is committing these murders. I'm assuming that's what I'm getting in this lyrics and tone here. There's a sense of sort of my shoe in your shoe sort of feeling here, and I also get a sense of Sadistik being overtaken by the spirit of Eileen throughout the track, fitting the album title of Delirium and just mindfuck that is prevalent throughout all of this EP's track list. This and Hell is Where the Heart is the two more quieter and more mellower tracks in the EP here, giving off a very needed breathing room and a very cacophonous and dark wall of sound on the other tracks, but still very unsettling altogether, especially talking about a serial killer. And the eerie female choir that sings in the background sort of adds a bit of layer and a bit of depth and a bit of madness to this track. It's as if you're in the mind of the serial killer herself, and this voice is just tempting you and speaking to you with malicious intent. So overall, I do think this is a great project. I think this is his best EPs to date. Like I said before, this is to me Alters extension, like a Alters 1.5, which I don't mind. I could understand why some people might think of that as a huge criticism. I don't mind. I always say if it's not broken, don't fix it. And the brevity of this EP really amps that cacophonous and dark feeling to 20 to 11, whatever you want to call it. But yeah, this is a great project, and I don't see why this won't be in my end of year list. Again, this is too early to say, but I guess wishful thinking. So thank you guys so much for watching What the Robot Thinks, and I hope to see you soon with more content. Peace!